thinking about the topics, be kind, be compassionate. And I'm just going to sort of review. I'm not going to take a deep dive into this content because it's not foreign, content. But I just to think about, I'm going to introduce you toward the end of the presentation to the alphas that are coming into our work environment. They're going to be different for us. So just ask yourself, is the current workforce presenting opportunities or challenges for you as leaders? So that's the main question. And again, I watch everybody play with this thing. I didn't have to play with this. I just had to smile when people were having challenges. So, again, objectives, we're going to look at the 6 generations. Do you realize there's 6 generations? And we're going to find out in a minute. Some of you are in, the only generation we don't have is the most recent one, the alphas. But I know there's some of the others, the 5 that are here. We'll look at 9 tips. Got to give you something to go away with that managers, can use to help the employees that they have and to create a workplace that anyone will want to join and feel valued. Joy. So that's what we want, is to be sure that everybody has joy. All right, these are the faces of the 6 generations. And actually, there's only 5 of them up there, but they're kind of the mixture. You can see, the traditionalists at the top left corner, and the bottom is where we're starting to see the alphas. And I'll talk about them in a minute. So, who are you? Well, I'm going to guess that we don't have anybody. Maybe we would like to be born between 2013 and the present, but we don't have anybody here today. I don't think anyone has their children with them. How many were born 1997 to 2012? Do we have any Gen Zers here with us at the conference? Okay. I appreciate it, Nancy, that you admit. So anyway, what about, I think we're going to get a little closer. How about any millennials? Look at that room full of millennials. And thank you, because you're the mainstay of this conference, and you certainly are in terms of our workforce. All right, how about any Gen Xers in the room? If you're given the millennials a little run for their money here. So, and then boomers. I'm a boomer. Anyway, so we're, and that's, again, I'm only 39, right? That's what I tell people, but I say about 38 times. Okay, and I know that we have a traditionalist in the room. Well, you had to have been born. No, it's between 1928 and 1945. So is Maria the only one that's here? Is anybody else joining her? Huh? Anyway, but and we'll sort of bring your glasses next time. So, okay, so just kind of breaking down the groupings here. Maria and her colleagues are less than 1% now of the workforce. I'm thankful for you that you're still giving, and definitely. Boomers, there are a few of us, myself included, we're about 21%. And as I'll share, some people would like us to ride off into the sunset. The Gen Xers are kind of right there on our heels, about 19.5%. The millennials or Gen Y, 22%. And the Gen Zs are 21%. So they're making up the major component of our workforce. And again, we'll spend just a little bit. What are the characteristics? What are the challenges, or are they opportunities? And the alphas, which I think you'll appreciate, what we're going to be looking forward to, they're about 13% now. They're in the workforce. They're at McDonald's. They're not in the hospitals yet because and maybe they're, we're volunteers, or maybe they're helping, take books around, because they're only about 15 years of age, the oldest ones. So anyway, we will. Now, I love these quotes. This is, young people today have no work ethic, complains an older nurse on a break after trying to help an unappreciative new graduate manage his time a little better. That breaks my heart. I don't want to have them say that about new graduates. I want the new graduates to be there excited and listening and wanting to be, part of the experience. And they will have gone to St. Mary's and had an excellent education and ready to be engaged in the workforce. But then, of course, the response of the 20-something nurse, the please, I want a life. Now, hopefully, we're not hearing that. They chose nursing, and that I believe they want to be there. But there's that eye rolling, the nonverbal that we were talking about, and they're exasperated. They're being asked to work, oh my gosh, on a day off, or maybe on the weekend or something. That's, the perception, and whether it's, hopefully we're not seeing a lot of that. Okay, Maria, now we're going to talk a little bit about you from 1928 to 1945, where your year is in. Okay. All right. So, and I'm not going to read these to you, but just think about, and Maria, I'd be curious, is this you? Are you motivated by respect? Do you provide long-term value? I think you do. We see that's evident because you're still giving. And, recognition, you're here. And you prefer communication in person via handwritten notes over email. I mean, I think, that's one of the biggest things that I see in the generations is how we communicate comfortably. You believe in obedience, that we sort of conform as opposed to what I want. You really aren't. It's all about us as a team. Seniority by age, or is that really what's happening? How about hierarchical advancements? Are you dependable, straightforward, tactful, and loyal? Does that describe you, Maria? Obedient. Across ages. Okay. In that way. Mm. True. We're on the cusp, so to speak, as we really are on the cusp. So anyway, you're in, things were scarce. And I've heard you talk about that with your family, and that lots of opportunities to learn to do without. And I think that's some of the characteristics. It's interesting, though, how she describes, I love it. She's not obedient, but she's not disrespectful, but she's going to share with you, her, opinion, and how she believes that the work, our role clarity, what we need for professional role clarity. It's, I grew up with parents that were in this generation, and you didn't waste, that just wasn't, and those were very, very real. So I love the symbols that were characteristic of this generation: the swastikas, the Sputniks, the flappers, the flat tops, the roadsters. Did you have a roadster growing up? You didn't even have a car. That's okay. Well, but see, if things were They were limited. Flappers and flat tops. I mean, the visions that brings back. You smoked? No, I don't think did you smoke? Yeah. So what? At 12 years old, you started smoking. Had to have your parents' signature. Camels, okay. You had to have some place that you could do it, a safe place. Coca-Cola. Now we still have Coca-Cola out there. Have you noticed that the Coke bottles, they're putting first names on them? They're naming the bottles after people. I mean, if your name was Maria, you should be able to find a Coke bottle with Maria on it. Anyway, and you played 45s. Do you still do the twist? She can still dance. Anyway, and again, the retirement behaviors, I don't think she has any of those. So the baby.
But there was one thing I'd like to add.
Please.
What we had in my generation was the most incredible civics courses in school, starting from elementary all the way through high school. And we learned what it meant to be in a democracy.
Yeah, thank you. And you set a good stage for all of us in terms of to follow. Well, the baby boomers, I'm only 39, as you've heard me say, but somehow I fell into this category. But again, and I think about this in terms of, is this how I entered the workforce? Is this what I presented? And those of you, there were quite a few of you in this same category. Loyal, duty-bound, teamwork. I mean, those were things that we were impressed with in nursing school. We preferred communication and is whatever is efficient. But I have to laugh because it really, I think we do like face to face, and we certainly pick up the telephone. I don't know. I haven't gone into the more digital environment quite as smoothly as I probably should. We were considered to be, how many of you that are in the boomers see yourself as optimistic? Okay? Not today, maybe. I've got a couple of you. Competitive. I know, Nancy, competitive. All right, put your hand up. Anyway, competitive, a workaholic. Is that no? Workaholic? Yeah. Team oriented, absolutely. So, and the influence that we've had, along with, as Maria shared with us, we reflected evolving identity and exploding consumer products. Bell bottoms. I had bell bottoms. I had mood rings. I don't know what happened to them. You had Brooks Brothers, you had Rolexes, you had junk food, junk bonds. Now, the LSD to SEC, I really wasn't into LSD, but certainly that's where we learned about it in our generation. Rock and roll, country, blues, and of course, everybody's asking, I know my family is, when are you going to retire? And I always tell them I'm going to die at my desk. That is what my plan is. Okay, Gen Xers. Okay, this is your major group. Again, raise your hands, you Gen Xers. Okay, I'll be curious if this is you. You're motivated by diversity. Now, again, our speaker, the other Robyn, I think she mentioned yesterday, we can't hardly even use, the words DEI, but we do, and we value diversity. And so you're, the ones that are having to continue to look at diversity. Work-life balance. Do you think you have work-life balance? Your personal interests over the company interest? Is that you? No, I'm seeing heads shaking. So these have obviously, we've had to transition, or you've had to transition as we've gone through the years in order to, support our companies and our organizations that we work with. We do, as I said, you're motivated by diversity, you believe in diversity. And, Any of you, you don't have to say, but if you left a company because they didn't meet your design, thank you very much, Dr. Stan. More than once, okay, several of you. How many times? Only once, but because how many once? So twice, huh? They walked you out, you told us yesterday, right? Anyway, but that's what we will do. We're not going to stay there and not be, contributing to what's happening, and again, thinking about, rejecting the company that interferes with our personal lives. That's one thing, but it's also if they fail to meet your professional desires. And you're thought to be flexible. Are you flexible, Dr. Stanley? Okay, so you match this description: flexible, informal. Are you skeptical? Okay, so everybody that's in this generation, see yourself a bit skeptical, but definitely independent. Now, I have to tell you, this is my daughter, and she falls into this. Do you notice her arm? In terms of that, she has, and now her tattoos all the way down to her wrist. She's a graphic designer, and I mean, can't hardly understand what she's talking about in terms of, you know, oh, you know what I've, is that, okay. But they keep changing, they renew, they get engaged in, new types of things. And I have to chuckle because it's a whole different world. And she's always mother. I don't know if that's how your children talk, but that's what I am, mother, with the emphasis. Okay, millennials. That was our other group that was really a major contributor. And so, again, a lot of good comments. I would love to work for you in the hospital. I would love for you to be my manager because you're a quality manager. You look for unique work experience. And again, now this is where we might cross paths because your preferred communication is, IMs, texts, emails, and you believe in seeking challenges, growth, and development. Is that you, colleagues, Gen Y? Does that sound like you? I see a lot of heads nodding. You want a balanced work life, personal and work life. And I think those of us in the boomers and, we probably failed when it came to work-life balance because we really are workaholics. Competitive, civic-minded, open-minded, and achievement-oriented. We wouldn't be in the professional organizations that we're in if, and that I think carries over because of nursing, but your generation is well regarded for that. So here's your influences. And look at all that technology, cell phones, gives me palpitations, personal computers. I have to share that when I was at Cal State Sacramento, when I think I was about 12, maybe 15, that they typed, the program assistant typed my dissertation, my PhD from UC San Francisco, on the very first word processor that Sac State had. Very first. And it was like, ooh, what happened to the onion skin paper, the erasees that we, were so accustomed to? But so a lot of changes. And again, everywhere you can't miss out anymore with the internet. You can pretty well have virtual, you can have earth malls, I'm sure some of you have them come to your house. And the one thing I did like is that the Gen Y is really affected by missing their friends. And I think we all have a bit more of that. Recycling started with our Gen Ys. And as it says here, the word retirement probably does not exist in your vocabulary as Gen Ys. Maybe you disagree. All right, Gen Zs. How many Gen Zs? There weren't as many here, I don't think. No, I don't see anybody. I guess they're not quite into professional conferences. So again, you're going to see a little repetition here between Gen Zs and the alphas that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Again, it's the digital influence. How many of you were sit in the airport and you'd see these little tiny children with their iPads or with their, playing their games. And I'm thinking, oh my, I don't even know how to turn them on, and here they are, each one has their own, computer gadget that they're working on. They focus on I like this about Gen Z. They want to deal with funny people, witty people, smart people. They're really not focused on race or ethnicity. And, it's the term colorblind that was supposed to be a compliment, but a lot of people don't take that as a compliment, meaning that it isn't the ethnicity that we see. It is what they contribute, but they like flexibility. They want work hours that accommodate their needs. And I find sometimes they want to work Monday through Friday, day shift. Any of you have that challenge in your agency? So they really prioritize social responsibility and diversity. I thank them for that. How do you manage them as a leader, as a manager? Well, you need to have collaborative management relationships. You need to get these different groups together in order to have them work effectively. Overall mission, regular feedback, setting an example to help them learn and grow. And we've heard that yesterday and in today in terms of what the strategies are that we need to do in order to support them. And then they do seek healthcare and professional development benefits. They want to have the support, whether that's the population that is attracted to nursing. I think so. I think, how many of you think you have Gen Zs in your organization as your staff? I see heads nod. Okay, here are the alphas. And I love this picture. That's an alpha. And they're, somewhere you might find that they are born in 2010, maybe, but sometimes it's 2013 to 2025. Technology is probably their middle name. Again, they have very diverse backgrounds. That happens to be, their family structures are very diverse. They have been exposed to global issues. And we were talking last night at dinner about protests, but the protests are not bad protests. They're there for, they're championing those kinds of things that are good for our, we hope that most of the protests, but they're really into the global issues. And they like screens, they like multitasking, they can navigate the online environment. My grandson, who's 23, so he's not an alpha, but I can remember playing a game with him on the computer. I could no more keep that car on the track. And he finally just stopped the game and he goes, Gammy, enough. So anyway, so they do have a strong set. The alphas they're going to be good. This is really important. A strong sense of social responsibility. That's who we want to have in our organization. So just a couple more things about the alphas. As I said, they're very, very technologically savvy. And guess what they really like to think with? And we've been talking about this AI. They are really, really comfortable with AI, with virtual reality, and smart assistants will be integral to their future careers. We need to have them. They are entrepreneurial. We need to have some opportunities and at a very young age. So they will be creative, adaptable, and willing to take risks, which is an interesting concept given our current state of affairs. They want to be their own boss. Now that may be a bit of a challenge in having them, and they like side hustles. I love that terminology. They want to, have some other opportunities to work for others. And, we will support that. I was taught one of my colleagues has side opportunities. They like flexible work opportunities. They like remote work. That's the thing I found kind of challenging because, 2020 with COVID, the world just went remote, but now our governor in California said back to work on the ground. And my university where I am, the president, CEO said, you got to come back for 3 days a week and you can work 2 remotely. So we're starting to see this move back. Well, that isn't going to work with the alphas as they come into the workforce. They're purpose driven and they want a social impact. Does that sound like nursing? And so I think hopefully they'll bring that into the profession. As I said, they're only about 15 now, but we should start to, in the next 5 years, we should start to see them joining us. They are collaborative. And that's a very good thing. We've heard about the importance of collaboration, of working together in order to have a very cohesive workforce. They are into the gig, and these are some of these terms, the gig economy. Well, what they're looking for is short-term contracts. They don't want any of these long-term commitments that we have all had, how many years? I've heard people say I've been in nursing 40 years, 45, 50. I go to lunch about every 2 months with my very first group of nursing students from Sac State. When I finished my master's, started at Sac State, that's 53 years ago that I had them as students. And they've retired, but they are still the most engaging people that I can think of. And then again, the one thing that I found kind of interesting about the alphas, and that is that they are going to champion the importance of mental health. They actually are really, wanting well-being in the workplace. And how many know what FOMO stands for? I didn't. I had to look it up. But it was the fear of missing out. And that is a very stressful aspect to the alphas, is the fear of missing out. So they are, and it's said that they're already thinking about mental health. Yeah, 8 to 10-year-olds. I think that's kind of scary. And so they're going to be looking, to organizations where the workplaces will prioritize their well-being. Now, I don't think we in nursing and healthcare prioritize one group over the other. We know how important, and we heard about how that can impact patient safety if we're not, paying attention to that. But the authors will say to you that the alphas are going to disrupt and change the workforce in profound ways. So it'll be interesting to watch. Now there are clash points, and I've got the red light too. I know exactly. It's very intimidating. Anyway, just very quickly. So what are, the issues, the clash points that we're seeing in the workplace, and how will these generations, the ones that are still around or the ones that are coming, how are they going to help us? Or will they be a challenge or an opportunity? We don't have enough nurses. And I'm sure you've seen there's some hospital or clinics that have to close OB, maternal child. They don't have any nurses to deliver the baby. So which of these generations are going to be the best? Mandatory overtime, is that going to fit with the work-life balance that, we heard in several generations? We all have to do our part in terms of, overtime. The expanding technology. They will expand your technology. They will bring new ideas to your organization. How are you going to get the information to them? Their educational needs are going to be different. They're going to want certificates. They're going to want badges. They're going to want things that are very different. what will they go on to school? And the educational changes are amazing. A number of you have the DNP, but you know that hopefully, I think hopefully in 2026, the American Nurses Credentialing, group is wanting to have all APRNs to be doctorally prepared. So I'm hearing in California schools that are stopping their master's programs, and it's going to be BSN to DNP. Well, do you think that if these, alphas that are coming, that they're going to just want a badge? Just give me a badge that I have the content that you need. Compensation. Those of you in academia, I don't know about you, but I have very few full-time faculty. They're mostly all adjunct or, hourly or, per diem. And that's because education hasn't been able to keep up with the compensation, and they don't give up their service position. While they bring wonderful expertise, the governance piece of academia is struggling because we need them. Conflict in the workplace. How do you deal with conflict? We've had some great suggestions. Dr. Clark mentioned, how do you start that conversation when you have a conflict? And I always say, makes me feel like you're wagging my finger, your finger at me. So I am feeling uncomfortable with that, conversation. So how do you deal with conflict? And diversity. And it's, again, the languages and the ability to communicate with your patients. All right. Sorry. So what are the workplace differences? And I know I'm running out of time. So just thinking about the generational stereotyping, older youngers may consider the younger workers lazy. They won't take overtime. They won't work on the weekends. They won't, so we have challenges. The solution, team building. Let's take away nothing more than team building exercises. So you get both groups on the same page. Communication styles. The older generations, they like the emails and the texts. Well, you know what? You're going to have to adapt and train everyone on a company-wide tool. You can't have the different, and you've got, video calling, Teams, Zoom, texting. Everyone can choose their preference, but they need to be able, you should have a company-wide tool that they all can adapt to. Older managers may feel negativity about the younger workers who prefer to work remote. Some of that may not be possible. So can we have a hybrid? Can we do like 3 days on ground, 2 days remote? So you need to educate your team to evaluate based on the output versus the time in the office. You need to look at what can you accomplish in your organization with the different modalities. Are generational differences in the workplace good? Is there some positiveness about it? Well, how about you get diverse perspectives with age, training opportunities. They could teach our older nurses things. Mentorship, that is so important, and we've touched on that. Is that, do they have a mentor, and who is assigned to work with them? How can you improve communication with them and better decision making? Those are really, really positive aspects of having the generations. 9 tips, and then I will show you a wonderful picture of Alpha. And again, we want the cross-generational mentorship. I just want to reinforce, if you write down mentorship, embrace the diverse communication. Don't give me a timeout. He's looking the other way like he hasn't done that. Professional development opportunities, flexible work policies, cultural mutual respect. That's so vital to us. Generational. Let's celebrate the generations. Feedback. Get regular feedback. We all need to hear. I'm going to add a little comment about an at-will employment. California is an at-will employer state, which is unfortunate because if they, instead of saying, this is where you could improve and this is what might be good, they just said, we don't have to tell you. And so that doesn't certainly embed any kind of positiveness or opportunity. So those are things that we all can take away. But here's Alpha. Alpha is here, and what do you see? They're into their iPads, their laptops, their cell phones. They are the digital generation. So enjoy them. They're coming, and hopefully they'll want to be in nursing, and that they'll, because I'm sure those of you in academia have challenges, even with the ones that are, in the 20s. They just look at you like, yeah, right. Okay, thank you. One question, I'm standing between you and a break, I think, right? Oh, that's really tough. Where is my Australian colleague? Oh, you moved. You were over there. Oh, I thought you were over there. Anyway, I just need to see you for a minute. She hasn't been back. Anyway, so thank you very much. And again, Dr. Hedges and I are so grateful that you are here sharing all of this information with us. What is
Dr. Nelson.